recording all by itself. Hey, welcome to this live stream. It's one of my first, in fact, the first live stream that I'm doing on YouTube Live. Haven't done this before. I ran just a couple tests, actually earlier today, and I decided to put on this live stream to introduce myself, introduce who I am, the company, and also answer any questions anyone may have. As you can tell by the title, if you read it, I went from a software engineer close to about 9 years ago. I was a software engineer. Was a software engineer at two startups, and then one day decided I wanted to take my skills and go at it alone. And so I started a company called Grata Software, and been building the company for 9 years. We've reached over $1 million in sales finally in the last year, and I'm super excited about that because that's a huge feat in business. If you've ever worked, or if you ever started a business before, if you have a business, that's one of the hardest things to do is to hit that first million. And so we've been making changes to the company. We're going to be providing a lot more education, working in a little bit different fashion than what we've been working on, because now it's time to scale the business. We're trying to grow a lot faster now, which involves hiring consultants and mentors and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty excited about where we're headed. And I wanted to do this live stream because we really never promoted ourselves, put ourselves out there. A lot of stuff we've done is in the background. I'm an introvert by default. So even getting myself out on the forefront has been really difficult. So that is awesome. Okay. So my name is Rey Ortega, and like I said, 9 years ago, I decided to go out on my own and start Grata Software. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've built several businesses in the past, and didn't succeed in many of them. I did everything from starting Amway back when I was like 18 years old, and all that stuff. So I've always been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, but never really successful at it. I've been building websites since 1994. I started building websites back when internet first came out, and if you know, like if you have ever done that, it's basically everything was straight up HTML. And I learned off of Adobe Go Live. It was one of the first products that I was able to use, and it was pretty cool. I was basically just straight out of high school almost, or maybe I was still in high school. It was probably my junior senior year, but yeah. So I was doing HTML and learning how to build websites. And over the years, as technology progressed, I learned how to do CSS, which is the style sheets that help you design the websites. And then I went further into using that stuff to like my first real website that I built that was a commercial website was on GeoCities, and it was one of the first companies I started. I was really passionate in audio engineering and in audio, and so I created a company called Pro Audio Consultants. I was, and it was, I laugh at that because it was like a kid trying to go out and sell, or, try to start a business. And I really had no clue what I was doing. And it was pretty funny actually, because the site was horrible. Didn't really understand anything about marketing or sales or anything like that. I mean, I was a kid out of high school. I mean, the one blessing that I've always had that my parents always told me is I have a ability to talk. And so that's what I did. I just talked and tried to act like I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't know what I was doing. So anyways, total failure. But obviously I learned how to build websites because I was building websites for a company that was starting. And then over time, as technology progressed, I learned Flash development. Once they started, Macromedia was the company that invented Flash, and that gave you the ability to actually move images across the screen and do stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty exciting. So I got into Flash development. And it was using ActionScript 1 at the time, which is like a subset of JavaScript. It has the very same syntax as JavaScript, so it's not really a subset, but it was like basically JavaScript. And obviously because the syntax is pretty close to JavaScript, I learned JavaScript next. And then after JavaScript, ActionScript 2 came out, and I was building Flash games and Flash websites, and then incorporating a little bit of JavaScript as well. And then again, technology progressed again, and so now application development became a big thing. Being able to do browser-based applications using PHP, which was the next language that I learned. PHP and MySQL, which was the stack that I had used back then, and so on and so forth. So again, just as technology progressed, I've always been a lifetime learner. And I'm self-taught, by the way. I didn't go to school for software engineering. I learned on my own. There was, at the time when the internet first came out, about probably like 4 or 5 years after the internet first came out, a lot of people were starting to do like blogs and things like that. But they weren't really called blogs. They were more like forums. And you could just go on a forum and you could learn how to program from other people. People were sharing information left and right. It was probably one of the most awesome. And you know, right now, if you're young and you're in this industry, or you're just out there on the internet, you probably are super. You can learn anything you want, because everything's out there now. But back then, it was only a very select few sites that you could go to learn stuff. So I had learned from a guy named Lee Brimlow. I believe he used to work for Red Giant, I believe, or something like that. Which is a motion graphics plugin company that sold to another company just recently. But he had a site that he would teach Flash development, PHP, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of learned from him. And then again, as I progressed my career in building websites. Now, I say that very clearly: building websites, not applications. I didn't really get into applications until probably 2003, 2004. That's when I really got into applications, building applications. But from there, before that, it was just websites. And then after I started building applications, I started getting really comfortable with MySQL and SQL Server. And then I started looking at Microsoft products, started building .NET, ASP.NET. Especially I worked at a startup where we were a PHP development shop, and I was doing PHP, but my supervisor was a huge .NET guy, and he was basically like selling me on .NET, ASP.NET, and all the things you could do, and how to do SQL queries and all this kind of stuff to, store procedures in order to be better at creating more faster, rapid applications. And so I learned that, and then I kind of dabbled in Ruby on Rails. But anyways, just not to go over my resume of a software engineer, but I just give you an idea of I had an extensive experience as a software engineer over the years, and in each iteration, I always tried to develop a company that was very similar to what I was doing. And so, like, I started a multimedia company called Switchfoot Media. I started another company before that, but then I also had some brick and mortar type companies, or some multi-level marketing companies. So I'd done all of that stuff, and roughly around 2012, actually not 2012, 2008. Around 2008, I got tired of like building a company and it not succeeding. And so I was like, look, I just got to learn the fundamentals of how to build a company and what to look for in my building a company. Now, my dad's an entrepreneur, built his own company for 30 years, but his was mostly in commodity-based businesses. Most immigrants are. And so what they do is, things like, he didn't do laundromats and stuff, but he was like gas stations and diners and grocery stores type thing. And I didn't want to do that for a living, so I wanted to go my own way. So I chose to go to the software side, or the technology side, and but I just had a hard time understanding how to function and how to run the business, because I learned a little bit from my dad, but not everything. And the businesses are a lot different. Commodity-based businesses and a technology company are two separate businesses, and stuff like that. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going to University of Central Florida, studying business. Got a business degree, management degree, focused more on entrepreneurship and launching companies. And when I graduated from that, I worked at 2 startups, and then from those 2 startups, I learned a lot about the financing side, the raising money side, all those kind of things. And then I was able to utilize some of the skill sets that I learned in college and apply those to my work environment. Ultimately, putting me in a position to be really good at what I do. And because of my communication skills, I was able to attract companies, not tech companies, but just other companies, in helping them, build software and build solutions for them. And so after I worked at the second startup, it was a social media company that we basically were trying to build a competitor to Facebook in a span of 6 months. and I was the team lead for the back end team. I helped hire about 35 developers, all senior level, and try to build a product in like 6 months. We were able to get to alpha and beta, and then that's kind of when I made the decision that I have to go out on my own, because I've kind of reached that pinnacle of like, it's not just salary was maxed out, but just the skill level was maxed out. And it was like I wanted to challenge myself more. So I kind of went on my own at that point. And that's when I started Grata Software. And so, like I said, Grata Software now, we're 9 years in. And we started off, started from the bottom, now we're here type situation. I started off, cold calling. I have a very extensive history of sales because of all the different businesses that I tried to run or open. I have worked at several companies as a salesperson, so I had a lot of sales training as well. So when I started Grata, I basically hit the phones and cold called hundreds of companies, and then hired somebody to help me call hundreds of companies, and that's how we started. And we've been basically operating on a referral basis ever since then. We have not marketed. We haven't done any marketing. We haven't done any real social media. We just started this year. But that's basically it. Just been, building the company. And then we just, like I said, we just hit our 7-figure mark last year, and passed the 7-figure market last year. And then now our focus is on scaling to the next, what they call 10X. So I'm a huge proponent of Grant Cardone. I follow a lot of his stuff. I take his courses. I use his mentorships. All that stuff. And he's not the only one. There's several other people that I pay for their courses and their mentorships. And now we're focused on scaling our company 10X. And so we're going down that path of what to do in order to grow. And, maybe I could just talk about a little bit real quick about what it takes to be a entrepreneur. It's not easy. It's not for everyone. One of the things that I've noticed lately is if you go to, when we first started the company, we didn't have an office space, so we went into one of those co-location spaces where there's a lot of other startups, a lot of young people, a lot of startups. And when we went to this co-location place, it was weird because I was always taught about grinding. Like my father used to go to work at 5:30 in the morning. My dad owned about 3-4 businesses when we lived up in New Jersey, and he would leave at 5:30 in the morning, and he wouldn't come back home till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And I watched that throughout my life, and I realized, I was like, okay, that's the work ethic to be successful. In order to be successful, that's the kind of work ethic you have to have. And so when I started the company and we were working in a co-location spaces. We were working in one co-location space. It was a lot of students from UCF, Full Sail, and some other schools that were starting their own businesses that had gone through different. They'd gone through all of the training boot camp type stuff where they go and they do pitches and get some money so they can start their business and yada yada yada, all that stuff. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting there. So Jason, who's the guy that I hired to do sales when I first started, him and I were the ones that were hitting the phones. We sat there one night. It was like 5:30 in the afternoon or 5:30 in the evening. And I remember looking around and going, where's everybody at? Like, these are all startups, and we're talking pre-revenue startups. And when it hit 5:30, man, there was nobody in the office. And it shocked me because, from what I understood from my father, my uncle, my whole family, a lot of them are entrepreneurs, own their own businesses for several years. They're all retired now. It's like, you got to work, man. You got to put in the effort. You got to put in the work. And so it was shocking to see that. But the silver lining to seeing that is I knew at that point that that my company is going to succeed, because I know I'm going to outwork and out-hustle everyone around me, at least at that time. Obviously, today, if you go around and look at other, if you go to other business programs or training or whatever, the mantra of hard work is back. There was a moment for several years that people were talking about work-life balance, and I'm not against work-life work-life balance. The reason why I say that is because I have a family with 2 kids, and both kids are grown now, but we have a child who's special needs, and so my wife takes care of the child with special needs. And so, so I understand that there has to be a work-life balance. I do understand for people it has to be a work-life balance. I don't expect anyone to be a workaholic like I am. But one thing I've seen was that people were taking work-life balance to the extreme, where it's like, okay, if you did that extra like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever of work, you could have knocked out this one thing that could have put you a little bit further than the next person. And that's what, and I feel like for a moment there, for several years, this whole work-life balance is what people were looking for, and it created an environment where like people didn't put the effort they needed in order to be successful. And I'm sure someone's going to listen to this and be like, "Ah, man, you're one of those dudes. Like, you got to work your butt off, and you got to basically slave away." Listen, I'm not saying you got to slave away. I'm saying that if you're going to do your own thing, if you're going to do your own business, you are now in a competitive state at that point. It's like sports. So one of the things I didn't mention is I coach basketball. I coach girls basketball. And when I coach girls basketball, it's competitive. Even when I was coaching boys, it's competitive. Like, sports is competitive. That's why I love sports. And I feel like everyone should get into sports for this reason. Because when you go into business for yourself, it's competitive. You're going to be competing against other people out there that are trying to get the very same customers you're going after. So you got to step it up, and you got to put in that effort. You can't sit there and be like, I need to have a work-life balance at the beginning. Now, you could build your company to a point where you can have work-life balance, but at the beginning, you got to be gritty. You got to have grit. You got to go out there. You got to go fight for it. And that's the thing that like I saw for several years when I started my company that other people weren't doing. So I knew that all I had to do was maintain my grit, my work ethic, and everything, and I would be successful. And I was gonna surpass the people around me. And I'm not even anywhere near where my goals are, by the way. So I have a goal to be like, my goal is to get really up there. We're talking about $1 billion status. That's my goal. And I don't want to be a billionaire so that I can have a jet or a yacht or whatever. I really want to be a billionaire so that I can help more people, literally help more people. I mean, right now in my company, even though we're only 7-figure company, I'm sitting here, I donate my time, I donate money to inner city kids with special needs. When I coach basketball, I do it all for free. I coach at the high school level. I coach a travel program. Not my travel program, someone else's travel program, but I go and I coach and I volunteer my time with kids that need help and assistance to be better at what they're trying to accomplish. In the program that I coach at, we sign about 30 kids a year to college scholarships. So it's stuff that, that's what I do, right, in order to give back. And I know that if I can get to that $1 billion status, I can have the funds to be able to help a lot more people. And so that's my goal. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish. And so again, going back to what I was saying earlier, is that's the one thing I noticed about starting your company. I mean, starting a company that I saw that a lot of people were doing when we started was they just didn't have that grit. They were using the company to basically free themselves up so that they can go do other things. But they weren't making the money to be able to go do other things, but they were just doing those other things. Here we are 9 years later, probably 80% of those companies that started around the same time I started, they all failed. And they're back working at a company and still complaining about having to go work at the office now that everyone's asking you to come back to the office and all that kind of stuff. So it's just, it is what it is, And so if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be successful at it, you're going to have to prepare yourself mentally that you're going to have to put in the work, and it's going to take some time. The second thing I want you to really pay attention to is you want to be patient. There are days that I watched people that started the same time I did, and they were blowing me out of the water. And they weren't a competitor of mine. They were in a whole different industry, and they were blowing me out of the water. And I could have, and there were moments that I remember sitting there going, gosh, man, like, how are they getting there? And I'm still here, and da-da-da-da, and all stuff like that. And it just, so that was the other part was, even though maybe I was beating my competitors, the fact is I was still not progressing at the level or the speed that I wanted to. But I had to learn patience big time. Because, I'm a huge faith believer, and for me, it's, there's a plan for me and there's a plan for my time. And so, I never felt that because of the speed that I was growing, that would mean that I'm not going to make it. I always took that as the speed that I'm going is the speed that I'm going because it is the plan of action. It is the plan from a power greater than I am that's going to get me from point A to point Z. And I just got to keep being consistent, keep doing the things that I'm doing, keep progressing, keep learning, keep getting better, and so on and so forth. So definitely be patient. Don't try to rush it. You see all these people out there like, fail fast and all this kind of stuff, which, there is a thing to be said for that, right? If you want to build a growth business, or you want to build a business that that will scale to several million within 6 months, so that you can turn around and sell it, or whatever, that if that's what you want to do, okay, I can understand that. But me, I'm building a business because I'm building a business that cares about the customer and wants to build a relationship with the customer long term. I want my customers to be successful. I want my customers to be the billion-dollar company. I want them to be successful because in my eyes, the way I see it is if they get to that level, they're going to drag me with them, right? Because I'm going to be helping them get there. So it's a different mentality. So I'm a little bit more patient, and some people aren't, but I'm a little bit more patient about it. And I think, that's basically the thing to think about, right? So be gritty, put in the work, and then be patient and just be consistent. Because that's the biggest issue that people run into is they start to do the work, even if they're doing hard work, they do it for a little bit. They don't see the benefits of the work that they're doing yet, but they don't give it time to mature. And so what ends up happening is they end up quitting the whole concept just because they're not getting the results they think they should be getting immediately. We're in a society of instant gratification. And unfortunately, that is one of the reasons why, 95% of businesses fail within the first 10 years? And it's because people want instant gratification. They don't want to put in all the work for the amount of time that it takes in order to be successful. And there's something to be said for why business people get upset when others question, them being greedy, or, there's some fat cat that's trying to whatever. It's all because of, it bothers an entrepreneur who's succeeded because they know they've had to go through all that grit and all that hard work to get there. And because that's what it takes. And it's not easy. And you have to have a very thick skin, and you have to just push through it. So yeah, that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and get to where, the level that like I got to, 7 figures, and I'm still not done, like I said. So anyways, but looks like we don't have anyone in on chat, which, doesn't matter. Someone's going to watch this video eventually. But if you are listening to this or watching this, please subscribe. This channel is my company's channel, Grata Software, and we're going to continue to post stuff that I think, if you like entrepreneurship and technology, if you are a small business and you're looking at growing and scaling your business, if you're at the beginning, which you could obviously be at the beginning, there's things that we could do for you. If you're a company that's already built technology and you're trying to scale, but your technology is not scaling with you, we have a program for that. Just stay in contact with us, or we'll contact you, whatever, if there's business for us to do together. So anyways, I'm going to sign off now, and hopefully I'll get some people watching in the next one. So, all right, talk to you later.